petroleum marketers have warned that the pump price of premium motor spirit, PMS, popularly called petrol, could exceed 1,000 naira per litre, following President Bola Tinubu's approval of a 15% import duty on fuel imports. The new policy, which takes effect after a 30-day transition period, expected to end on the 21st of November 2025, is part of the government strategy to protect local refiners and reduce the influx of cheaper imported products that threaten domestic refining investments. However, marketers say the move could backfire and push retail prices beyond the reach of average Nigerians. Some energy experts have expressed concern over the federal government's approval of the policy, saying though aimed at protecting local refinery, it could worsen inflation and cost of living pressures. Joining us on the show to discuss the 15% import duty of oil imports is Kelvin Emmanuel, co-founder and chief executive officer at Dairy Hills. Good morning, Kelvin Emmanuel, and thank you for joining us on the morning show. Okay.
Dr. Abati, thank you so much. It's always a privilege.
Thank you. Let's cut through the chase. Government says the 15% fuel tax on imports is to protect local refining. Now, some analysts say, in fact, if government had added carbon tax to it, which is 5%, that will even be about 20%. But there are some other analysts who say that, one, this is being done just to protect Dangote refinery, that this is trade protectionism and an attempt to build a monopoly. Now, some people say no, that after all, the Dangote refinery is even asking for more competition, whether it's Renaissance Energy or other companies, and that the idea of building competition is just to develop the local industry. Now, where do you stand in this regard? After all, it was Lee Kuan Yew, right, who wrote in one of his books that Nigeria is the only country he saw where they make policy to serve personal purpose. But the Tinubu administration says no. The whole idea is actually in the public interest, not to build monopoly, not to frustrate competition, but to increase local productivity. What do you think?
Dr. Abati, thank you so much for the privilege. Good morning to you. Good morning to Fi. Good morning to Ayo in the studio.
Good morning.
Yes, it's such a privilege to be here. I was going to say, Dr. Abati, that the 15% ad valorem that the president has approved is in line with Article 6 of the World Trade Organization Charter on countervailing and anti-dumping. Okay? And the reason why I said this is because, at OTL Downstream last week, where I was a keynote speaker and I also spoke on the panel, NMDPRA executive commissioners were there. I challenged them and I asked them, I said, they cannot say today that they have certificate of quality that is verifiable based on industry standards that tests for the quality of products, because the quality of products determines the price. NMDPRA cannot say that the AFRI-5 standard, AFRI-5 is a standard that was agreed by Economic Committee of West African States, that says that all producers are supposed to adhere to 50 parts per million sulfur in the petrol and diesel consumed within West Africa, is being adhered to. So if you're importing products that fall below standard, is there a case to say that the products imported into Nigeria are supposed to be cheaper than is currently being offered to the market? If you look at that order that the State House has released, you see that it says that it's to deter against what they call collusion. Collusion means that you have marketers who are importing products who come together and say, we're going to set the price for this product. It's called oligopoly. And it's anti-competition. What that means is that if the quality of product that they're importing is actually lower than the landing cost they are claiming that it costs them to bring the products into Nigeria, then there's a case for Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Council According to its act, if you check sections 59, 2A, sections 107 of the FCCPC Act, it gives them the authority to fight against collusion in price, considering that there is a 2 million metric ton that is equivalent to 2.6 billion liters of floating storage and offloading facility in Lomé, Togo, where you bring in intermediates and you blend it, and then you now transship those products into Nigeria without a regulator checking for the quality of the product that determines the price. So the 15% is in line with international trade laws, and I congratulate the president for coming up with this policy. And it's also to protect local industries, because the competition is not fair. Dr. Abati, if Chelsea is playing against Arsenal and Chelsea has 15 players and Arsenal has 11, would you say it's fair competition? It's not fair competition.
All right.
The failure of the regulator to enforce the PIA is the reason why the government has decided to apply a 15% ad valorem on imports.
All right, Kelvin. Okay, I hear you. However, what some have argued, some analysts have argued, is that the burden of this 15% will be passed on to the consumers, to the Nigerian people, particularly because the Dangote refinery or local refiners are not yet able to meet local demand. What do you have to say about this?
That is not correct. And the reason it's not correct is because today, as we speak, MBS cannot say that the data it collects from NMDPRA is based on any scientific evidence of actual daily consumption. The actual daily consumption numbers NMDPRA claims Nigeria consumes is based on projection. When you're calculating daily consumption, you don't use projection. Projection is assumption. You need a scientific framework for measuring actual daily consumption. And this number of actual daily consumption of 50 million, this phantom number that NMDPRA keeps parading around, is the basis on which the government grants import licenses. It's the basis for sections 317, 9, and 10 of the PIA. So if you don't have the right consumption data, then there's a problem of you justifying the import licenses that you keep granting to the marketers to bring in, because the reality is that Nigeria doesn't actually consume 50 million liters of PMS. Dangote does 45 million liters of PMS, 26 million liters of diesel, and about 14 million liters of jet A1. Even if Nigeria consumes about 5 to 6 million liters of jet on a daily basis. So is there a case for the refiners actually met up with Nigeria's daily consumption, is supplying the market, and is exporting the difference not taken by the Nigerian market? Why is the regulator refusing to establish a scientific framework for actual daily consumption as provided by the PIA? Is that so it could justify keeping the import licenses of the people who transship and blend products? They go to ports in Russia, yeah, they buy mazout condensate, they mix it with crude oil from Kazakhstan, they ship it to Lomé, they blend it, then they transship it to Nigeria. This is the reality of what is going on. This is not speculation, it's not an allegation, it's a statement of facts, Ayo. It's a statement of facts.
So are you saying, just categorically, are you saying, Kelvin, that local production is able to meet local demand?
Ayo, local production is able to meet local demand if they take products from Dangote. If the government is afraid about competition, it should ask NNPC management not to waste more money in that turnaround maintenance they want to do to those dead refineries, and actually invest fresh money in building fresh refineries to compete with Dangote.
Okay.
Those refineries are a drain pipe.
Okay.
Warri, Port Harcourt, and Kaduna, they're a drain pipe.
Okay, wait a minute. I mean, we know those ones are those were big scams. Two things. You said Dangote churns out 45 million PMS. How much does Nigeria take out of that 45 million PMS from Dangote as we speak today? Please, that's the first question. Second question. Yeah. No. Okay. Let me ask all the questions and you take from it. So, how much does Nigeria take for that 45 million? Secondly, what is the scientific way to be able to determine, consumption per day? If we can get that number, because it's also very critical. With this 15% ad valorem, it's definitely going to jack up the pump price of petroleum. How can we make it in such a way that Dangote can still sell at its own price so that we can offset the pains of this 15% ad valorem, which will jack up the price and which will make it harder for people?
Rufai, first of all, Dangote currently supplies anywhere between 20 and 22 million liters of PMS, not because it doesn't have the capacity to, but because that is what the market is taking from him on a daily basis.
Market takes 20. So
his actual daily production currently
is 45. So market takes 20 from him, then he has to sell and export 25 million liters.
Correct.
Okay. So why are they not taking the extra 25 million liters? How can we effectively calculate consumption per day, the scientific model? Then how can we ensure that he churns out more product to offset the 15% ad valorem price that these marketers will now have to push through to Nigerians?
Rufai, so NMD, that man went to Dangote and asked for a 75 naira subsidy, 70 naira for coastal freight, and then 5 naira for loading per liter, which if you do the numbers, comes to about 1.5 trillion naira on a yearly basis. Dangote is not the government, so you can't be offering them subsidy to give them level playing field to compete with it. They are asking for the privilege of the refiner, and they didn't invest money. So that's one reason why they are not taking from him, right? On your question about, you asked me, sorry, can you recall the other question you asked me about the scientific way for calculating actual daily consumption? The scientific way of
calculating consumption, yes. Daily consumption, we want to know it. Scientific way of calculating daily consumption, briefly.
Rufai, truck out that measures how many trucks leaves the depots and the gantries. At least for Dangote, you can confirm how many trucks leaves the gantries and how many liters per truck goes out on a daily basis. For the depots, the truck out figure, right, historically has been a way to justify petroleum equalization fund numbers. It's not a scientific way to calculate daily consumption. There are more technologically advanced ways of calculating consumption, like trackers that the agency, the commission can actually institutes metering and tracking to ensure that the trucks that go out of depots are not diverted, right? To ensure that the trucks that go out of depots go to filling stations, to ensure that the trucks that go out of depots are not empty, they are loaded with products, right? The regulator has an SOP for instituting a scientific or empirical framework for calculating daily consumption. It just doesn't want to implement it. Okay?
Okay. Can we start by feedback rates of dispensing per filling stations per day? Can we start by that?
Just in a statement. Just one sentence.
Because we are done with time now.
Kelvin, one sentence, please.
No, I didn't get that question, please.
Okay, we need to wrap up, Kelvin.
Okay,
There's no time.
We get feedback from filling stations.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Filling stations that sell us fuel that evaporate. So I think your big point is about the failure of the regulator.
Okay, Ayo.
Not having effective standard operating procedures to determine quality or volume.
All right, thank you so much for your time with us today, Kelvin.